friend. You're listening to The Sustainable Body Worker, the podcast for massage therapists who want to grow thriving, purpose-led businesses without the burnout. Here we talk about nervous system aligned business strategy, pricing that makes sense, client work that doesn't deplete you, and how to build a career that actually supports your life. I'm your host, Gretchen Pop, massage therapist, mentor, educator, and recovering overachiever. Let's get into it. Alrighty, this one I'm so excited about. You guys, welcome to our first trifecta conversation. So apologies in advance to everyone listening if we get so excited about what we're talking about that we kind of talk over each other. It might happen. It'll be great. I want to welcome those of you who have been listening to us for a while, know my co-host, Kelsy Filler. Kelsy, thank you for being here to kind of foster this conversation with us. And Alyse Shine, thank you so much for joining. Alyse is someone who has probably known me more, like knowing what's going on in my life and my chaos over the past 6 or so years, better than a lot of people. And I'm so grateful to the connection that we have had as first being a intuitive coach for me. I found you through Badass Body Workers, and you supported me through some incredibly challenging times in my life and my business. And then ultimately becoming a friend, someone that I can have confidence in sharing my life with, and supporting each other's businesses as well. You've been a huge support to me. I have, goodness knows, purchased more crystals from you than is probably good for my bank account. Alas, I love it. Alyse, I'd love to give you an opportunity to just kind of introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. It's been so fun getting to know you over the years and getting to meet you and the family in person and go crystal shopping with you too in Denver. I am first and foremost, I feel like my job, my mission in this life is to inspire people to live in their own power and whatever that means. And it has translated to me helping to spark people to really dive into their own intuition and to honor that and to remember that we aren't just humans living in this physical world, that we have a very strong connection to our souls and to our spiritual side. And whether we're doing that through our intuition or helping with crystals or meditation or through body work, even tapping into that part of ourselves. And so I feel like I'm a bit of an activator in that, or an inspirer, I hope. And also a mama and a now grandmother and a big animal lover. And that's me.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because we have been doing a lot of digging into the concept of flow states. And this is such a big conversation to have with massage therapists, anyone who does creative work. Let's just be real. Flow is such a natural creative process. And I brought you here, Alyse, because of the intuitive connection that we've talked about before around working with our clients and getting into that state, and how massage is kind of like a moving meditation and we get really tapped in and tuned in. And I loved the masterclass that you did for the Sustainable Body Worker last year. That was so great on tapping into that intuitive connection and all of the things that we kind of deal with in that realm. And Kelsy, we started talking about this in regard to Nihai Mikchet. I'm gonna mess up his name. Nihai Csikszentmihalyi's book Flow, and there's some really incredible concepts that we've pulled out, and I would love for you to give kind of an introduction to our listeners about what we're going to be talking about today and why this is so important.
So the more that I read, I know you said you're going to mess up his name pronunciation, but I still have not once been able to pronounce it right. So the more that I read Flow, the more that I started to understand his psychological understanding of flow as a meditation in action. And since day one, massage, the practice of massage, has felt like an incredible moving meditation, not just a meditation for ourselves. In a lot of ways, massage is almost kind of like a dyadic meditation because you are inducing that same sense of presence and stillness in the person that you are actively working with and on. And it's kind of incredible reading through each of the conditions that induce flow align so deeply with not only the practice as a whole, but the practice within each session, having the intention to, whether it's relieve stress or restore mobility or ease tension, having a focused point of attention and inviting awareness to that process. That lone structure is enough to induce the state of flow, induce that moving meditation.
Yeah. Well, there's been something that came to mind for me, specifically with what you were just saying, but also as I was reading a different version. I think it was an older version because he was mentioning studies and things from the 90s. And I'm like, this is a little outdated. But um, there was this concept of the structure providing the space for flow. But there's a piece where I think a lot of us massage therapists, when we go into the schools and we go into maybe we're going into a specialized practice or something like that, and that structure can kind of separate us from that flow and make us feel like, oh, okay, I have an hour and this person has shoulder pain and I'm going to be like really trying to get them out of pain and I have to make sure to work this muscle and that muscle. Like if they've taken my course, I know some people get like really psyched out about like the anatomical stuff. I always joke with people, I'm like, I forgot half of what I taught you guys. Just put your hands on people and trust that what things will come to your hands will come, and it's important. And Alyse, I'm interested in your perspective on this because there is this kind of sweet spot between effort and surrender and just letting that information come to you. And from your perspective as an intuitive body worker and coach, how do you personally recognize when you're in that flow? And does it feel like something particular for you?
I I love that you say that you forgot half of what you taught in class because I honestly, if somebody asks me in a session what muscle is it, I have to completely switch gears because I'm not using that part of my brain for massage. I know a lot of practitioners do, and I've taken Don Lewis's classes too, which are very anatomy heavy, and I believe that that's important for a foundation. But after doing this for more than 10 years at this point, I don't think about the muscles. I don't use my thinking brain. I just go into hands and energy and feeling. So yes, I'm palpating and I'm feeling for different, crunchies or adhesions or anything like that. But when somebody, and that's one of the ways that I know that I've been in the flow state is if somebody speaks and I come out of it, or if there's a sound in the room and I'm like almost startled by it because I am in that deep meditative state with the other person. And I'm just in that flow, and I feel like it is easy to be interrupted and to have that contrast of the switching to the thinking brain from it because it is very fluid otherwise.
Yeah. Do you feel like that affects the outcome for your clients? Like the client, do you have chatty Cathys or have you been able to
Yes.
curate that so that you can stay in that flow state for them?
My last client that I just saw before this, ironically, speaks the whole time and considers me their therapist in more than one way. And that's fine. And I feel like they get the results that they need. And it's not up to me to say, you need to be quiet because everybody is different. But what I enjoy more is being in the flow state. And I feel like it's good for my nervous system also. And it's something that I encourage people to do when tapping into their intuition or anybody who has anxiety. And you mentioned at the beginning about creativity and how it's important for any creatives to be in the flow state. Some people don't identify with being a creative. and they're like, well, I don't paint or I don't do music and I don't, and it doesn't matter. I'm like, anything that you can do to be in the flow state. Do you enjoy gardening? Do you enjoy walking? Any of those things that just take you out of the thinking brain can get you into that flow state. And I haven't read the book that you're both referring to, and I would love for you to send me the link to that.
For sure.
But yeah, I feel like we need to change that perception about you need to be a creative or an artist, because we all have that creativity in us. And it is important for our energy, our chakras to tap into whatever it is that gets you into that flow state.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because I was just thinking like even mathematicians can get into a flow state, you know. And it's anything that allows that time to elapse really fast. And I want to circle back to something that you said about how when you get into that flow state, it allows your nervous system to kind of be co-regulated. And I know, Kelsey, you found some really interesting stuff about that. So I want to circle back and see what you had on that concept, because I personally feel like there are days in my practice where if I am super stressed out, but I have that one client that I know, like, I don't want it to sound like I'm like using my clients as a stress reduction mechanism. It just happens naturally. I feel so grateful to have that client on my table where it's like they're tuned in. We are able to really co-regulate together. I'm able to give them my flowy massage and tune in. Like I'm not really like there's some clients where I'm like, okay, you have this specific pain pattern and I have to really be on it and make sure that you're leaving with specific results today. But there's others that I can really just get into that beautiful flow with. And it does, like, it tunes me into a regulated nervous system and allows me sometimes to show up even better for those other clients that don't necessarily naturally tune me in that way. So, Kelsey, what do you have to share on that? Because I remember there were some cool notes on that.
Yes, it's all fascinating, but this is one of the most fascinating pieces to me is that relational flow state. Like we mentioned earlier, massage is kind of a dyadic meditation. It is our breathing that helps, or guided breath even, that helps regulate their breathing. The process of emotional contagion, our nervous systems are constantly scanning for signals of safety or danger or degrees of presence. It's a natural somatic process that we're undergoing every moment. And whatever state we are in when a client steps through the day and vice versa is contagious to a bit. So there's that fun little dance of trying to meet people where they are at initially and trying to shift gears downwards. Technically, the mechanism for the co-regulation is all through the automatic nervous system. But going back to what is happening energetically, I don't feel like we even necessarily have to know how our mirror neurons are echoing one another or how our heartbeats or breathing rates are kind of creating ripples in one another's nervous system. I feel like it can be something as simple as understanding energetically, like, okay, I am present, I am in my body, and I am inviting you to not only be present in your body, but to allow me to be present with you and with your pain patterns and with whatever, not even struggles necessarily, just whatever noise is going on at the moment. And that is the magic. That is the emotional contagion, even beyond what's going on under the scenes mechanistically throughout our nervous system.
That's magical. I feel like there's this you use the word contagion, and it is interesting because I had this experience, and this was the beginning of my fibromyalgia experience early on in my practice. It felt like a contagion. I was absorbing people's crap rather than co-regulating people's crap. And I'm curious, like Alyse, I know you do so much work with this. Like you've got to have that boundary. I did not have that boundary. I started wearing citrine and actually getting interested in crystals because someone who learned about this in a workshop that I was in with them, they were like, girl, you need to get yourself some citrine. You're absorbing all your clients' stuff. So what's like, do you have a practice? Do you have a thing that you do to kind of keep from that contagion aspect of it from actually being beneficial?
Yeah, I use crystals. I I actually am holding a Labradorite right now. I use Labradorite usually. This is Moonstone, but I always like to have one over my heart, so I wear it as a pendant. And it also is kind of like a talisman to like remind me to not allow the absorption. But I feel like it happens anyway. And when it does, after every session, whether it's body work or reading, I have a practice and it can be different for everyone, but I wash my hands with cold water. So I wash them like regularly. And then I literally say the client's name and I say, Gretchen's energy is returned to her. The only energy that's left is my own. I call back all my power and I just let it go. And I do that every time. But I do notice that I don't know if it's being an empath or a sensitive or what, but sometimes I will take on people's pain, literally.
Mhm.
Like all of a sudden my right knee hurt the other day and the my coworker was like, "Oh, I've been having right knee pain. That's mine." I was like, "Okay, you need to take it back."
Yeah.
I'm sorry that your knee hurts, but like I don't have knee problems. So it is a very when you're in, and maybe it's when we're in that flow state too, we're so open. It's kind of like we're very porous in those moments. And if we're not very careful, we can definitely absorb whatever energies are going on, whether it's a pain or an emotion or just a feeling that we're having. So it is important to protect and then also have a practice of clearing and whatever that is for you afterwards.
Yeah, and so few workplaces allow space for that,
Mm.
unfortunately. There's a trick I've started doing, even just at the end of the session. I always end on the client's feet, and I just quick shake of my hands. I wish everyone just like imagine you got water on your hands and you're just shaking them. I do that because like I just kind of not that I don't have time in between my sessions now. We've got 30 minutes where we're at, which is fantastic. That's perfect amount of time to take care of ourselves. But that shake, like even just to be like, it's done and kind of cutting a cord from my fingers makes such a big difference. Kelsey, do you have any practices like that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'd say probably the first 5, 10 minutes of each session, especially as I'm going through those kind of introductory compressions, I am always saying some kind of mantra or intention setting, but with the kind of depth almost like a prayer. I don't consider myself religious or anything, but it is we honor both the separation and the union, like in this human experience. We may take what serves us from this session, but carry no ties at the cost of one another going forward. We can keep what serves, but anything beyond that will not leave this session, essentially. And there's always some variance. By that point, I feel like I'm tuned in enough to where like little things will pop in here and there that I feel like is more reflective of where the client is at currently or where I'm at that day, just any extra boundaries on either degree. But first intention, most important intention, is we can create a really beautiful healing space, but there is no tie that is left at the end of this experience.
Yeah. I think that anyone listening, I want to just offer a gentle invitation to like, there are no rules about this. You may not have been taught this in school. Maybe you did go to a little bit more of a crunchy school where they heavily emphasized this, but there's really no rules to how to set yourself up for being protected in a session or how to serve your clients best. Play with different things, and it doesn't have to take forever. Really, one deep breath can be all that it takes to just set yourself up for having a good protected boundary or letting things go. But anything, I love Alyse the water. I do that too. I have a little bit of an intention behind washing my hands and just washing it go down the drain makes a big difference too because it really is a beautiful release. I do that with baths as well. I have a very regular bathing practice where it's like all my stuff can stew and go down the drain. And that's like, I think a good long regular practice of self-care on a regular basis can make a big difference. But when it comes to like even just like switching sheets between your clients, the shaking out of the top sheet can even stir up the energy and be like a physical practice of cleansing the
Yeah.
table, so to speak, and get creative with it. As I think that's one of my favorite things about being a little witchy is like it, whatever feels good, it's gonna make it work. And that's the magic about it. I want to circle back to this concept of what happens when we get too much in our heads in a session and it kind of gets us out of the flow state because at the end of the day, like we come from a place of really wanting to help our clients. We are helpers. Some people have issues with the words healers. So I'll just say we're helpers, we're facilitators of change, whether that is in an energetic way, whether that is through just holding space for them, letting them have that verbal catharsis, like that client you mentioned, Alyse, and many of us have that chatty Cathy client. But we can sometimes overthink and, whether we're not necessarily so regulated one day and anxiety has the opportunity to creep in, or if we just happen to be overthinkers like yours truly in general. And this is a common thing that I think that a lot of us, especially early on in our practice, experience because we want to do well. And I'm curious from both of your perspectives, if there's any particular way, Alyse, I'll start with you speaking specifically to tapping into your intuitive guidance around quieting the mind and inviting more presence for those sessions when we might be overthinking a little bit too much.
It's so hard because it's almost like trying to ignore the elephant in the room.
Mm.
If you're like, get out of my mind, get out of my mind, it's you're in your mind even more. So I it depends too on the client, whether they're chatty or they're quiet. I feel like when they're chatty, it's almost easier because then you're not in your own head. If you're in a silent 90-minute session and you're dealing with something emotionally, or you had a fight with your spouse, or you have a family event coming up that you're nervous about, whatever it is, that you have more time then to be thinking about it. Um, I just keep focusing back on the body. That is what helps me. I say, okay, just come back, just come back. And when I'm receiving body work, the same thing,
Mm.
right? It's like you can be in your head and thinking, thinking, thinking. And then you're like, well, no, let me come back to the sensations. Let me come back. And that really helps me. Is reminding what I'm telling my clients too, or my coaching clients as well, is like focus in on what your senses are. What are you feeling in this moment? What are your hands feeling? What are the smells like? What are the sounds in the room? And that way you're not just like letting the brain run the show. And I think that's something I also teach my coaching clients a lot, is that we tend to think that the brain is in charge,
Mhm.
and it's really the observer of the brain. That is our soul, that is our intuitive self, our higher self, whatever you want to call it. That is who's in charge. And to call back that power, and I don't like anybody telling me what to do, period. Gretchen, you know that.
Yeah.
So if my brain starts telling me what to do, I'm like, shut the F up. I'm in charge here. I'm running the show. You need to stop. So that helps.
I love that. You've like used that for your own good, which is really great. It makes me think, and of course I can't remember which book I was learning this from, but that observer you're talking about, a tool that I've recently learned from that book, and I'll figure it out eventually, is oh, it's called An Awakened Mind. That's the book. Very good book for anyone who's interested. We'll link all of these in the show notes. But the concept of when you see yourself spiraling and all of these da 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 going, I see it as like a hierarchical thing. Like we actually have that observer that's watching that and going, oh, I'm overthinking, or there my brain goes overthinking again. And there's a tool that's really helpful on top of that, is naming that thinking voice and giving it a name. So like let's say that voice in my head is Betsy. Ah, Betsy's overthinking again. Thanks, Betsy. I know that you're interested in making sure I remember my shopping list, or I know that you really want to stick up for me and you thought of some really cool things that I could have said in that conversation I had a week ago. But Betsy, chill, we're in a massage now. And it really is a really powerful tool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Giving the name to the emotion or the mental process, that's really in line with a lot of internal family systems work
Yeah.
as well, and realizing the role that that part, even if it is being really loud or really pokey, just having the recognition, like, it is trying to serve you. It is trying to do the best job that it can in that moment. That's a beautiful practice.
Yeah, well, I mean, it gives it some compassion because like technically it is still kind of a part of you. It's a part of your human self. It's the way that your brain is wired. It is doing a job. It isn't necessarily thinking about like how it's going to impact you long term if you continue to listen to those voices, but it is trying. And yeah, Betsy, just pat her on the head. It's all good.
But you could even turn it around and make it work for you. You know, you're like I said, the brain isn't in charge. We're the ones in charge. And just to remind Betsy that thank you for your opinion, but I'm the boss here, and maybe giving her a task.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of task could you see putting Betsy on while massaging if she's overthinking that conversation that could have gone a lot better?
I would have her revisit it afterwards
Okay.
and say, you know what? Let's just give you some time. We've got 90 minutes on the clock. Afterwards, you go for it and you figure that out for me.
I have heard that practice actually where like honoring that voice and being like, okay, yes, I will get to you. Like we'll talk about this at this later time, but right now is not. It's kind of like working with a child. Honestly, like good parenting is like validating, saying like, okay, yes, I hear you. I see that you're upset. Right now is not a great time to talk about this, but I promise I'm going to be giving you some space for this. And it really does like shelve it while still honoring that like there's something that's stirred up there and it needs to be looked at. It's just not the time or place for it.
Right. And honoring it and appreciating it. We know that Betsy has a role, that's an important role that you're playing in the integrated Gretchen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so compassionate.
It is.
Yeah. Kelsey, I'm curious about how you have found with like the overthinking and being able to step back into flow. Are there any practices that you've worked with for
Mm.
that for yourself?
So typically, especially if I am very in the mind in that moment, I will take an in the mind kind of approach, trying to say, oh, okay, I understand we're trying to figure out this problem or work through this situation right now, but ultimately, in this moment, I don't have anywhere else I need to be right now. I don't have anything else I need to do right now. I have to be here in this body and with this person right now. But if it is like something bigger that can't really be convinced to settle down for a moment in that, then I will take the body route. My massage, or yeah, Gretchen, it's very flowy, it's very rhythmic. I try to be as much like water as possible, and I find that for me at least, finding flow in my body ultimately ends up inviting flow into my mind. So sometimes if I can't convince my mind with my mind that we can settle our mind, then I will convince my mind with my body that we
Hmm.
can settle my mind. So like a lot of rhythmic, like bilateral strokes, rocking and slowing my breath and inducing breath in the client. I find that it almost feels like I try to put myself in a little trance sometimes. And then once I get into that trance-like state, it becomes more of a exploration of that moment, including mentally at that point. I think it tunes me into that same observer, like soul observer point that we're talking about, where it's like, okay, yeah, she's got some stuff on her mind, but she's flowing through the moment. It'll be okay.
Yeah. That made me think about like putting Betsy to work in a different kind of a way. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Betsy, how can you, like, I'm thinking about getting, like, utilizing that energy in the mind toward, like, how could I make this move a little bit more swoopy? Or does this
Yes.
client like maybe if I add this move and maybe inviting a little bit more creativity into this session to put that power that's like those wheels that are turning to a specific purpose, a little more of a creative purpose. It's kind of like jingling the keys in front of the baby's face. Like, no,
Yes.
let's do this instead.
Let's add more swoop. It works every time.
Hey, friend, pausing the episode real quick to share something I personally use and deeply believe in. If you're like most body workers I know, you've probably had those days where your nervous system is completely fried from back to back sessions, admin chaos, and way too much time hunched over a screen. Maybe you want to meditate, but your mind is racing. You want to ground, but your body won't let you. And that's where the In Harmony Practitioner mat comes in. This isn't just a relaxation mat, it is vibroacoustic therapy, which uses low frequency sound vibrations through the body to stimulate the vagus nerve, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and reduce pain and inflammation. It's the real deal. I got mine back in 2021 for my clinic, originally for clients to use before body work or a sauna session, but honestly, I used it just as much for myself. It became my go-to regulation tool between client days and computer-heavy work, especially when I was struggling with back pain, insomnia, and fibromyalgia. This gave me a reset that was both physical and mental. And it's not just anecdotal either. Research shows that vibroacoustic therapy can do really amazing things. It improves heart rate variability, which is a key marker of nervous system resilience. It reduces cortisol and supports deep theta brainwave states, meaning calmer minds and better healing outcomes overall. And it helps with chronic pain, anxiety, PTSD, and even creative flow by resyncing your body's internal rhythms with soothing full body frequencies. It's also a powerful tool for your clients. I used to offer it before sessions to help clients drop into a regulated state, especially those who arrived overwhelmed, anxious, or overstimulated. You know, the ones who can't relax on the table until 30 minutes in. This helped them release their baggage at the door so that we could actually do deeper, more effective work from the start of their actual session with me. Some practitioners even use it during sessions to enhance results. I personally prefer to keep it separate, but I did love pairing it with herbal wraps, giving clients a way to receive deeply without being touched, which can be incredibly healing for trauma-informed care. And here's the thing. The nervous system is the entry point for transformation. If we can calm it, everything changes. For you, for your clients, for your business. And if you want to experience it for yourself or add it to your practice, head to iaminharmony.com and use my code NEURO5 for 5% off. It's a write-off for your business, and honestly, it's one of the best investments I've ever made. All right, let's get back to the episode. Adding more shroom. I love that.
I love that. I love that. And I love that concept of letting the body lead the mind, because that's what like Qigong and Tai Chi and any of those other movement meditations are about, is like the movement is going to help to regulate what's going on in the thinking state. So I love that.
It makes me think of I'm not trained in Thai massage by any means, but I did take this one class with a husband and wife that were that they were the instructors, and they are heavily influenced by Thai work. And I've been trying to find them forever, so don't even try. I have no idea who they were, but it was an amazing class. But the one Thai piece that I remember that I specifically dripped into this experience was the concept of adding, doing everything in threes, every
Mm.
3 times. And that could be a really great way to redirect that type of thought process if you are like spiraling on something or finding yourself being distracted, or like even sometimes those sessions you're just not in it. Like, let's be real,
Mhm.
let's name it. So that just sometimes happens. Maybe going to a place of like, okay, well, let's do each stroke 3 times and getting into that 1, 2, 3. Next thing, 1, 2, 3, and really experimenting with giving that front sight focus for your mind to focus on with that session.
Mm.
I love that.
So there's a lot to do with getting blocked in this process that I want to talk about, because, you know, like I mentioned, there are those sessions where we're just not into it. Maybe it's the client that we're just not meshing with, but there's also this conversation we've had so many times on this podcast and in my work of, you know, being completely burnt out and tapped out. And it can really disconnect us from the actual joy that can be blossoming in this work, right? If we're, you know, going through, it could be physical burnout, but maybe we're emotionally burnt out, going through a challenging time in our lives. Lord knows we've all been there. There's even just self-doubt. There's general, just, you know, maybe being underpaid and being totally like unsure if we want to continue with this work, and it disconnects us from being able to be in those deeply connected flow states. First and foremost, I want to name this as a experience that a lot of us have. I feel like there's a common experience that I had. And I think I spoke with Corey Rivera on the podcast that we did several episodes ago around the hidden health crisis in massage, where I relate this kind of burnout to a similar experience that I had with being a mom. And Alyse, I'm curious about if this resonates with you at all. I feel like every mom I've spoken to can resonate about this, where it's like, man, we're supposed to want to be good at this and to want to love every moment of it. And the same thing applies to being a massage therapist too, right? Because this isn't necessarily a career that we get into because it's the most profitable or it's the easiest on our body and most sustainable. Like there's this nugget of like passion and like I just want to help people. I remember my first day of massage school, we all went around in a circle and said why we wanted to become a massage therapist, and everyone has this amazing healing story. I'm like, got to me and I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. I really don't know why I'm here. But there's this sometimes like when we experience this burnout or this disconnect, there can be this sense of guilt. Kind of, then this is where I attribute the motherhood thing too, because I feel guilt sometimes when I'm like, I'm just not into it today. And I'm really interested in how we can not just name that and not really normalize it to the point of like saying that that is the way that it is, but offer love and support for anyone who might be going through that, acknowledging that there is sometimes a season of that. But how do we get out of that? I'd invite either of you, if there's any like moment that you may have had in your life or practice with feeling that, because Lord knows I've been there with massage, and it can be really disheartening and disconnect us from, again, that flow state that when we are like really in it, but sometimes tapping back into that flow state is exactly what ignites that spark again and rejuvenates us as well.
Are you talking about like not loving it and then feeling
Yeah,
guilty about not loving it?
yeah.
Okay.
In so many words. I mean, Lord knows I can throw too many words on
Yeah.
trying to explain something.
I was just trying to figure out how to answer. Yeah, for sure. Parenthood was that for sure. And one of the reasons why I went into massage school was so I could have a flexible schedule and be able to be with my kids. So it to me, my relationship with my kids is very much tied to my massage practice. Not so much now that they're older, but yeah, there are times, I mean, that's why I'm not doing as much now as I really began to follow my joy. And I really love Esther Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I did a seminar 2 weekends ago, September 13th. So I know this is airing later, but about 2 weeks ago. And I was feeling kind of stuck in things. And that really helped me get back into the vortex, is what they call it.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to a flow state, but it's more of a energetic, spiritual that you can get back into by following your joy. So I know that comes from a place of privilege where I can make that decision now in my life to say, okay, I'm going to step away from one-on-one client work right now because I'm following my joy and I'm doing something that's super fun for me. And I know that there was a time in my life where I couldn't do that. And it was like, okay, well, I need to pay these bills, so I need to be here. And in those moments, it was more of a, I need to make the best of it. And part of that was making sure that I was working with clients that were aligned with what I loved to do and letting people know that I was an intuitive and that I can receive messages and working with energy rather than just doing straight body work. When I first went into practice, I was seeing anybody that would come to me. I was seeing, I was doing sports massage. And all different kinds, pain management, which, it all is pain management. But when I started to really hone into offering who I was and being authentic to me, that really helped me even in those days where I had to, do it for the grind. that it wasn't just a job. It was like, okay, I'm still seeing the clients that I like, that are appreciative of me. And then being very strict with my boundaries, which is kind of counterintuitive to flow. But if you think about it, you do need to create a structure for the flow to exist. And it's like
Yes.
you're creating a container, right? So making sure that my clients weren't canceling all the time. And if they did, that they were being charged for it, that they respected my time. And if they didn't, they weren't invited to create another booking with me. All of those things really helped me to love it as much as I could in those days where I had to do it.
Yeah. Well, speaking about the vortex too, like I just want to speak to this the difficult situation that a lot of people find themselves in, especially early on in their practice. We've all been there, like you said, where you're working on everybody and their mother just to get someone on the table because at the end of the day, bills need to be paid. And there is a amazing energetic shift that can happen when you start saying no to the wrong clients and recognizing like I encourage everyone. Most people who do coaching with me have this practice if this is what they're going through. So I invite everyone to try this who's listening. Make a list of all of your clients, their name, and then just kind of energetically feel into how they make you feel. If you're there's someone that you see on your calendar and you're just dreading the day, or someone who's like, oh, I'm so excited to see this person, and have a green, orange, or red highlighter. And the green people are like those ones you're so excited to see. Their sessions always light you up. The red ones are the ones that you're dreading, and the other ones are just kind of like meh. And the first thing to do is well, there's two steps. You can start with either one, but the first step would be to let those red clients go or just stop rebooking them, offering them their next session, wishing them farewell, and, kind of energetically cutting that tie. If you need to actually fire them, then that's a whole other story. But the green clients, thanking them, even doing this as an energetic kind of prayer practice or like meditation or whatever feels good for you, of saying like, thank you for coming into my practice. This is the type of person I want to be working with. Please send more. But also literally telling these clients, you are my ideal client. And if you have any friends, family, or anything that could benefit from my work, I would love to know them. I would love to share this work with them because 9 times out of 10, they have friends that are just like them who are going to light you up just as much as they light you up. And they'll be happy to share all of that. But the energetic practice of saying no and like really determining who those clients are, even though it's so scary, gets you into that vortex. You're literally telling the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, what you want to be doing with your time. And it's such a important way of stepping into that power. And part of being in that power is what can help you get into a place where you are able to flow, energetically flow, because your brain space and your heart space isn't spending so much energy worrying about those red clients.
That's
And
it.
you're able to be there for those green clients so much more.
That's it.
Yeah. Kelsey, was there anything with Csikszentmihalyi's work that kind of substantiates that or speaks to that?
Within the realm of how flow state overlaps with massage, I would probably lean more so towards trying to find some kind of intrinsic reward, being driven by intrinsic rewards, something that is deeply satisfying for the act in and of itself, rather than treating the massage as the means to some kind of ends, is something that I find myself leaning on, even if I do feel like I'm struggling with something.
So are you saying like beyond the paycheck?
Beyond the paycheck, or beyond just like, I have to go to work today, so I will
Mhm.
go and do my work for the act of having my work done. If that makes sense. Every session is an end in and of itself, not the means to an end of, oh, I did that today.
Mhm.
Essentially, the intrinsic reward in my mind, if we are really not feeling it, we are not loving being a massage therapist that day, is still trying to find some way that that information, that feedback serves me. How can I go in with curiosity, non-judgment, and understanding, and explore the ways that this isn't lighting me up how would I be able to shift that, whether it's what you're talking about in, is it a misalignment with a client? Is this a misalignment with how I'm spending or allocating this time and energy? And seeing that as an intrinsic motivation to make those changes for yourself. So it feels better going forward. And then having the perspective as you're moving through that, that every change that I'm making is a more of an experiment rather than a criticism of how I've been doing things up to that point, or a criticism for the fact that I'm really not feeling it that day. Because by treating each change as an experiment, you are still leaving room for that curiosity. You are still leaving room for that presence for yourself rather than, oh, I need to change this thing. I need to do this differently because I am not feeling good in this moment. Just trying to stay grounded in that introspective feedback system we're getting, because when we aren't feeling it, that's just as valid as the times that we really are feeling it. So what are those parts saying to us, and how can we move through that process of making those changes, whatever they may be, in a way that also invites flow instead of making it this highly pressured, I don't feel good. How do I go back to feeling good as quickly as possible?
Something that really helped me, and if this is a possibility for anybody, is to get rid of the clock in my room.
Mm.
Because I felt like in the challenging times that I had where I was in my head a lot, I would find myself looking at the clock and being like, oh my gosh, I have a whole nother hour left of this. And instead, I would keep a watch in my pocket and I would just check it when I felt like, maybe it had been an hour or maybe it had been a half an hour, rather than having this big looming thing on the wall. And actually, the room that I work in this office that I'm in today, it has a broken clock where it's always 5 o'clock. So
5 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock somewhere, cocktail time. So it's actually, that's very helpful for me, but it's just anything that you can do. And I love what you're saying though, Kelsey, about like the exploration and the experiment, and that invites almost that sense of play and curiosity into it rather than a force. And nobody really likes to be forced to do something. So if you're like, okay, let's see what happens. And it can change even if you do have the green light client, right? And one day maybe they're not feeling great, or maybe there's just a disconnect and you're like, why am I feeling an orange vibe with this green light client today? But having that feeling of exploration is like, oh, isn't that interesting? I wonder what's going on here. It really makes more of an expansive environment rather than a what's going on here, and like trying to force yourself into flow.
So much more self-compassionate
Yeah.
too. Like, and I resonate so much with the when Kelsey started talking about like I saw what you were saying is like using it as feedback and seeing
Mm.
like, oh, this is out of flow. And instead of being like, oh, I'm feeling like crap today, da 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 da, da, I hate this, which only makes the clock move slower, let's be real. But using that as like, oh, well, what could this mean? Could this mean like, oh, maybe I didn't sleep so well. Maybe I should, turn my phone off an hour before, a little hour earlier, or maybe I shouldn't have eaten that pasta so close to bed, or da 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 da. Then looking at that feedback and like making the change, I resonate with the type of person being like, okay, I'm going to fix all of these things about myself. And that can be really, really hard. And I mean, it's my MO, and it's like how I ended up becoming like so aggressively focused on like fixing all of these things in my life. But I think that at least you make such a good point of like, coming from a place of curiosity and play and like just being kind of like, huh, okay. And letting it be more kind because Lord knows like if I could just give myself a hug instead of being like, oh, well, maybe you should have eaten a salad instead of that Pop Tart before this session. We love Pop Tarts.
They're so good.
But like, if I could be more compassionate to myself, I think that a lot of the physical symptoms that I have experienced over the years would not have been so aggressive And
Yeah.
sometimes those physical symptoms are so aggressive because we've been so aggressive to ourselves. It's just an embodiment of the mental state that we've been putting on ourselves.
1000%. I mean, we know this as intuitive body workers that every thing that is maybe a dysfunction or a dis-ease in your body can be either exacerbated or caused by an emotional state. And Louise Hay talked about that in her Heal Your Body book, which I think is so fantastic. Sometimes it's really literal, like UTI, being pissed off about something. I love that
Yep.
one. But for sure, if we, and especially as women, I feel like we are so hard on ourselves, and we are so we're almost like a bully to ourselves often, and we talk to ourselves in such a critical way that we would never speak to our loved ones. And for us to just have more compassion just in general, I feel like is going to change everything in our lives, from our practice to our health.
Yeah.
So be nice to yourself, Gretchen.
You know, I'm working on it. It's been a lifetime.
I
It's
know,
a
Sam.
practice.
Literally, Sam.
Yep, yep. I mean, that's probably why we connect so well. Let's be real.
Yeah, I know. Like, we gotta do this. We gotta do better. We got like we're always just trying to like do better and become a better version of ourselves, which is wonderful. And our clients 1000% benefit from that because we're like amazing at what we do because we've made ourselves be that way. But
Yeah.
then can we benefit from it too, please? And just like give ourselves some grace and some space to say, okay, like nice, Lacey.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a
Pat
like
ourselves a little.
it's a learned thing. I think, it's funny. I just started reading, we're gonna list so many books in the show notes. I love it.
Yeah.
I've been reading, I got at the book sale yesterday, The Heroine's Journey. And
Mm.
it's based off of looking at the female perspective of the hero's journey and how different it is. And I only got through maybe 3 chapters of it, but the premise that it started with, which hit me really hard, I was like, oh, I feel a little seen and uncomfortable right here. But it resonates so much with this, what we were just speaking about, of how a lot of us, raised in this culture, have actually been on a very patriarchal stepladder of what success looks like. And a lot of women end up getting like to that success point, and we look around and we're like, well, what's next? Like, why isn't this fulfilling for me in the same way that it would be for a man, or like historically has been, or we perceived would have been? But we end up in this place where we start actually getting so hard on ourselves that we reject and this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been doing for the past couple of years, is where we reject that entire paradigm and start trying to rebuild from this more soft, like nurturing, more just feminine place. And it's, again, I'm still only like a tiny fraction into it, but I'm like reading this in the park yesterday and just being like, oh man, this explains so much. And I think that when it comes to having this kind of juxtaposition of like being a business owner and having to kind of wear the pants and do the things and like step up and like be really regimented and like, for lack of a better term, be like a little bit more in the male sphere in that
Mhm.
regard, but also still like maintaining that feminine flow that we're talking about now, and like holding space for that while also still being there for our kids, and then there for ourselves, and like kind to ourselves in the process. Man, that is like bouncy ball going back and forth. And it's, in my experience, it's been challenging to kind of hold space for all of it and be able to reconcile that.
But I love how you brought in the masculine and the feminine, because that is an important reminder for us, because the flow state is more of a feminine energy. And as business owners, you are living more in that masculine, that structured. So to remind ourselves to be in more of that feminine, that softness. One of the things that I have been working on for many years, and I invite my clients and my students to do as well, is to be in the allowing and the receiving. And as givers, as moms, as women, as body workers, we are big into giving, and that puts us into imbalance immediately.
Yeah.
And it blocks the flow of money. It blocks the flow of joy. It blocks the flow of health when we are just, it's just a one-way street, right? We're just allowing things to go out. And then we're in depletion. So if you go, oh, and I'm getting the chills as I'm saying this. So spirit is like, yes, thank you for mentioning that. Is that if we are more in that allowing, in that receiving state, we're going to receive so much more, and allowing that flow to come in of money, of joy, of awareness, of expansion. It's just going to just keep opening us up in the best way. So thank you for mentioning that, Gretchen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes me want to ask, how do you open yourself up to that receiving state?
I have to be very intentional with it because I do feel like I've been more in my masculine in building my business and doing all of these things. I'm lucky enough to have a partner of over 10 years now. We're going to be married 7 years on Tuesday, which is amazing.
Congrats.
Who's thank you. He's very in touch with his feminine, but he's very, very masculine. He's a Pisces, so he's a water sign. And I I have practiced in all this time to allow him to do things for me and to not always try to do everything myself. And that's been really, really helpful in my practice of allowing. And if it's just such a little thing, like if somebody wants to open the door for you and it's not necessarily your spouse, you allow them to open the door for you. If somebody's like, oh, you're out to lunch with a friend and they're like, oh, let me pick up the tab. And you're like, oh, no, 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 I got this. Say thank you so much. That's so kind of you, and allow them to do that for you, because that practice of I can do it myself is a very like masculine giving practice. And if you catch yourself, so it starts with awareness, right? I'm blocking my blessings at that point. If I'm like, nope, I got this, I'm gonna pay for it. I'm going to get the door myself. I'm going to drive myself to this event, whatever it is, allowing, catching yourself and letting that in.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kelsey, when Alyse had mentioned receiving, you were emphatically shaking your head. So
Yes.
I want to open space for like what tapped in there for you.
I mean, allowing has been my word of intention for the year. Legitimately,
Yay.
that has been my practice, and the way that you just tied that into the resistance to that being a literal block to your blessings. Yes, that has been a very dynamic and beautiful process of both unlearning and relearning over this last year. But the more it gets reaffirmed, not just in conversations like this, but in those little, I love how applicable those moments of receiving that you listed as well, whether it is allowing someone to open the door for you or just in a genuine sense, even if someone genuinely asks, like, hey, how are you doing today? And it's more so, I don't know if you guys have the same thing. I feel like I notice this in a lot of body workers. It's like, oh, I'm great, but how are you today? It's
Right.
always like a one-sided exchange, which I understand ethically with massage. Like we're there to help them. You know what I mean? I'm not saying in that case specifically that's always the way it should go, but there are so many ways that we are programmed to be the giver every moment
Yeah.
of every
Yeah.
day. And
The two main types of humans, they say, are the service to self and the service to others. And we are obviously in service to others, but that can't be at our own expense. And that doesn't mean that we need to be in service all the time. And
yes,
it doesn't mean that we don't matter. And that's the message that we're sending to the universe. If somebody asks you how you are and you're like, oh, I'm good, but how are you? It's like, I don't matter. Why are you asking me about
what
me?
you mean?
Yeah, silly.
That
We
actually
matter
ties into
too.
the Corey's episode, actually. That I believe was one of the components that she listed to, like, attributing to the health crisis amongst massage therapists is that the lack of support is the way that I believe I remember her wording it, but it can be, I feel like, boiled down to like a lack of receiving, like a lack of, whether it's a lack of people actually trying to give to the givers, or even if there are people trying to give, maybe people just aren't receiving it at that point. I don't know. It's fascinating. That's a new rabbit hole. I feel like I want to follow that, but also I want to stay on flow with flow.
Yeah. Well,
we could do another podcast about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what it makes me think about is what flow actually is. If we were to visualize what's actually happening, it's not just one direction. It's not just the giving. It really is that flow back and forth. So I want to kind of tie this or back around to everyone who's listening. I think that like there's got to be nuggets here for anyone listening to this, and I want to invite everyone to kind of explore and at least open the door to paying attention to how much we are allowing that receiving to take place, whether it's, you know, in accepting tips, or if it's allowing the door to be opened for you, or whatever it may be for you. If there's a resistance that you've been feeling, or start to pay attention to that and see how we might invite that, because how much of that giving and receiving energy really is just kind of unlocking the spiral that is allowing us to get into flow states in other ways too. So bringing that full circle. I know that we could have this conversation much longer, and goodness knows, Alyse, I need to go check out your shop finally and
yes,
give
come
you
to
all the
Sleepy
support.
Hollow.
Yes. I invite everyone who is in the area to go and check out Alyse's shop and buy some crystals and all the witchy goodness stuff. But I also want Alyse to share anyone who wants to know more about the work that you do, who you are, follow your shop, follow your work. Your TikToks are always great. You always make me smile whenever I see you pop on there and share on Instagram and stuff. It always makes me so happy. So where can people learn more about what you have to offer and all of that good stuff?
So my website is my name, AlyseFaith.com, ALYSE. Well, you'll put it in the show notes. And my TikTok that I use for my intuitive stuff is Psychic Alyse Faith. And the Instagram that I'm using most these days is the shop Cozy Coven, which is the name of my shop in Sleepy Hollow. So we moved from White Plains to Sleepy Hollow last year. And we also have an online store, which is also shopcozycoven.com. So you can shop all of your witchy things. We have crystals, and we have a little apothecary and tarot cards and all kinds of things like that. And I also will be opening up my course again in the winter, which is intuitive guidance for women. And I also do one-on-one sessions virtually for anybody who's interested.
And I highly recommend too, Alyse, you helped me so much when my daughter was going through her bone disease before she was actually diagnosed. That was what our first sessions were about. You tapped into really the emotional root. I remember when you first tapped into that, what you had said to me was like, oh, she's a little worrier. Like I think that was the first thing you tapped into. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And there's this, she had this deep emotional root connection to my emotions influencing her pain patterns. And you helped me so much with that, and discovering how to help her. And you've helped me through so many different various aspects of my life and business. And so anyone who needs a little guidance in that regard from someone who tells it like it is, I really appreciate that about you as well. You give the tough love when it's beneficial. And it's just been such a joy being able to work with you and being your friend and supporting you and watching the growth of your business as well. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelsy, for facilitating this with us as well and getting this ball rolling with the Flow series. I want to just thank everyone for listening in on this episode. It has been an absolute pleasure to have both of you guys here today.
I love it. This has been so great.
Thanks for listening to The Sustainable Body Worker. If something resonated for you today, grab your free breakthrough session, which includes a custom hypnotherapy track to help you unlock the next level. Grab it now with the link in the show notes. And to hear more, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.